I remember a while back, we had a huge snowfall here in Atlanta. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's fun. And it's especially fun for kids. I mean, it doesn't last for long, so you got to enjoy it while it's there. And if you're lucky, we'll stay on the ground for a couple of days. So, of course, last time we had it, or a while ago, I guess, my kids, they loved it. They thought it was the best thing ever. So they played outside just without end, which is great. So they put on their coats, they put on their hats, they put on their gloves, they go out, they do the snowballs. Finally, they get cold because they get wet. They make it inside, gulp down some hot chocolate, throw off their wet gloves, put on the new dry ones, and go out. So after a while, we ran out of gloves because they keep doing that over and over. And we're like, okay, now we're going to have to put those in the dryer, and you have to wait for a little while. So when kids play outside in the snow, it's always fun for me to watch them because this is so new, this is so unusual for them. Yeah, I grew up in snow, so for me, this is not a big deal, But for them, this is a big deal. So last time I remember they were making this huge snowball. They were going to make a snowman. And they starts with a little snowball, right? Just a little one, and they kind of roll it, make it bigger, make it bigger, make it bigger. And so my oldest one, he's been determined to make the snowman. And so he made this decent-sized looking snowball. I mean, I guess maybe about, a foot and a half in diameter. So it's really nice already. But then he gets this great idea to roll it down the hill. And our backyard is a nice little slope. So he gathers it together, and he just rolls it down the hill. And as it rolls, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, it gets to the bottom of the hill. The bush stops it. And it's quite large. So he's all excited. He's going to make his snowman. So they make it down there, and they decide that they're going to try to take it to the front yard. No way. Because by this point, the snowball is like 4 feet wide in diameter, and they can't push it up the hill. So guess what? The snowman building project moves down to the backyard. That's where it's going to be. And that's where it happened. So the reason why I'm telling you the story is because I think sometimes our relationship with Hashem can be like that snowball. It's so many little tiny snowflakes built into it. And before you know, it could be something quite substantial. And so many little tiny snowflakes is what makes it up. The Vayikra is one of those places where we pick up a lot of those snowflakes. In our first reading, when we read from the book of Leviticus, and by the way, Leviticus is a nice Latin term, if you were wondering. The book is not really called Leviticus, it's called Vayikra. It means, and he called. I don't know why we're so stuck on using Latin, but I guess so goes the popular names in the Bible. So I refer to it as Leviticus because that's what people know. And so sometimes if I say Vayikra, I get blank stares. So, it's okay. I'll go with that. So as we read Leviticus, and people say, oh, Leviticus, that's for the priests. Even the name suggests it, right? For the Levites. But guess what? Torah is for all of us, not just for Levites. And yes, while there's a lot of content in there about priestly services and sacrifices and all kinds of stuff, the commandments, we can get lost in all those little details. The truth is that there are things in Leviticus that speak to every single one of us. We just have to be able to see it. And so when I tell people that I find the book of Leviticus personally deep and spiritual, people kind of smile at me because most Bible teachers avoid it. So the parsha begins with instructions of bringing offerings before God. And on the surface, it seems mundane, very simple. But I believe if we open our spiritual eyes, and this is what it's going to take for you to be able to see Leviticus for what it really is. You're going to have to open your spiritual eyes and look beyond the text just a little bit. I think Hashem will allow you to see past the selection of materials and the slaughter and the cutting and the burning and all of those things. There are spiritual truths out there that are applicable to our everyday lives. But we have to work a little bit to get them. So I think there are relevant things in Leviticus even for today. How can I see in the midst of all these rules and regulations and instructions something spiritual? I will try to show you. So just stay with me for this little ride. In the very first sentence of Leviticus, I'm confronted with the fact that the sacrifices are all about relationship. That's how I see them. That's why I told you my snowball story. their relationships with Hashem, with the Almighty. Leviticus 1:2 says, "Speak to the children of Israel and tell them," and then it goes on, "Adam ki yakriv mikem korban ladonai," which translates roughly, when any person brings an offering to the Lord. And I have to stop reading there because after that comes instructions, and that's just more details. But let me just zero in for this for just a moment. Even before we get to the instructions, I'm actually encountering something very interesting here. And the language is a little bit unusual. When you look at it in Hebrew, all of a sudden it jumps out at you. What jumps out first is it uses the word Adam. And that's not typical of Torah. I mean, there's a lot of times in Torah you will see the word Ish or Isha or Nashim, Anashim. You hear all these different words. But all of a sudden here is Adam. What does Adam have to do with this? And that because Torah is telling us this passage is applying to us as people, as humanity. It's to the mankind. That's what Adam means. It's a collective term for mankind. And then I keep looking at this passage and just seeing how awkwardly it's phrased. I haven't even read the whole sentence, but the Torah speaks about bringing an offering using pronoun mikem. Mikem, which is a masculine plural you, basically, joined with the preposition from or of. Now, this is odd because I'm teaching you a little bit of Hebrew grammar here, but stay with me just for a moment. You will get this. So when it comes to sacrifice, it's plural, and it's you plural. It begins with Adam, corporate humanity, and then it continues in plural you. And that is why, as I look at this verse, the Jewish tradition teaches that when we bring an offering, we truly bring an offering of us. This is that idea of mikem. It's very weird grammar, but it basically says that you bring an offering of us. Tradition says that you basically bring a piece of who you are. You bring yourself to Hashem, as if we ourselves were that offering. But that is not all. As I keep looking at just this phrase, Torah says, "Ki yakriv mikem korban ladonai." Literally, as if he offers himself as an offering to the Lord, Hebrew says, offers an offering. Again, very poetic language. It uses the same exact verb, to draw near. Korav means to draw near, right? So we have the word korban, an offering, from that same. So as he offers an offering, I mean, it sounds like you're using the same word twice, essentially. But literally, as we read this, and if you understand that the word korban means to, and karav means to draw near or to draw close, then you can read this verse this way. As he draws near by giving off himself, remember mikem, a korban which brings him near to the Lord. Now, I know that's a very messy translation, but that's a very literal one, and it's packed with meaning. There's so much in just this little phrase. A korban, a sacrifice, is how one draws near to the Lord. Because we live in a world that's so different today, and we do not have Mishkan, we do not have Beit HaMikdash, we don't get a chance to worship God this way. We forget this. We lose sight of this. But it is much more than just about goats and sheep. It is about us coming to Hashem. I think we can apply that to our lives. Now, remember my kids, they tried to push that snowball up the hill, but they could not. And they planned on building a snowman in the front yard for the whole entire community to see their wonderful creation. And I applaud that. So you see, you and I, we're no different. We make plans. And sometimes we have to abandon our plans because we have to come to where Hashem is and not where we want him to be. We don't push him where we want him to be. We draw near to him where he rests. Because the truth is, Hashem is so much bigger than any snowball you and I can muster. We can't push him to where we want him to be. We have to come to him. So when we come, we bring ourselves, and of ourselves we give. And that's the aspect that these simple words, I got this from half of a sentence.